Well, hi, everybody. We have a great night for you. So I'm going to go ahead and get started. And all you're going to hear from me is I wanted to, before I turn things over to Penny Manson, I wanted to put in a plug for our Saturday event. This Saturday, August 17th, we are very excited. It is in person. Although I'm very sad that that means we're not going to see people like Aaron and Deborah. But you will be with us in spirit. We will be meeting at the Tabor Ranch Vineyard and Event Center. The address for that is on the website. It is 16628 County Road 81 in Capay, California. And I want to make very sure, and your reminder email will also say this, follow the signs for the tasting room. Once you turn off at Tabor Ranch, there are a couple different ways you can go, and you want to go toward the tasting room. That is where we will be meeting. Don't go toward where they hold the weddings. We are a full service organization, but we don't go that far. So we would love to see everyone there. It starts at 11. They have food for sale there. You can bring your own. Obviously, they have wine, great drinks, things like that. If you'd rather have soda, they've got that too. So we would love to see you. And now I am delighted to turn it over to our interviewer extraordinaire, Penny Manson, who is going to introduce our wonderful Meet the Author for this month. So Penny, take it away. Oh, sorry, one more thing. If everyone could turn off your cameras and your microphones.
Oh, I guess I shouldn't turn off mine. Okay. Hi, everyone. I'm so glad you could join us tonight. We have a fabulous author to interview tonight. And if you have not had a chance to read her book, please, please, after tonight, you'll want to anyway. It's a fabulous book. She's a fabulous author, and we're going to have a really good time getting to know her better tonight. For those of you who are not able to join us on Saturday, I just wanted to let you know that we will all be toasting you in absentia, because that's the kind of group we are. We will have your glass of wine for you just so that you don't have to feel left out. Rest assured, no grape will be wasted. So, alrighty. So, we are meeting Cindy Fazzi tonight, the author of Multo. And let me tell you a little bit about Cindy. Cindy is a Filipino American writer and a former Associated Press reporter. She's the author of Multo, published by Agora Books in September 2023. Her historical novel, My MacArthur, was published by Sand Hill Review Press in 2018. Her short stories have been published in the Sacramento News and Review, Copperfield Review, Snake Nation Review, A Thin Slice of Anxiety, and Tough. Her articles have appeared in the Daily Beast, Electric Literature, Publishers Weekly, and Writer's Digest. She has worked as a journalist in the Philippines, Taiwan, and in the United States. Cindy, thank you for joining us tonight. We're so glad to have you here with us.
So excited to be here. Thank you for having me.
Oh, so really, it is our pleasure. Okay, so let's start by meeting you. You were born where?
I was born and raised in the Philippines. I was born in Manila. I grew up in the Philippines. I immigrated to this country in 1989. I came as a graduate student.
Okay. And siblings?
I have two siblings. I am the youngest of three girls. My oldest sister is in New York. My middle sister is still in the Philippines, and I'm here in Fair Oaks, California.
So you're the baby?
I'm the baby.
Married?
Yes, we were just talking about my last name. In case you're wondering, it is not Filipino. I'm married to an Italian American from Brooklyn. So he's an Italian who doesn't speak Italian. So, as I was saying earlier, we went to Italy and we were in a group tour and they kept shouting, Fazzi family. And we were standing there. Are they calling us? Because we didn't know that the right pronunciation is Fazzi. But in America, it's just Fazzi.
Fozzie. Any kind of culture clashes going on between Filipino and Italian?
No, so I have a British friend who told me that the Filipinos are the Italians of Asia because Italians are Catholics and Filipinos are Catholics and very family oriented. And we have nagging parents and a lot of similarities.
Mm. So it was easy to acclimate to cultures under one
I think so.
rooftop. Fantastic. Children?
Just one. I can only handle one. A daughter. I mean, really, I had really hard pregnancy. I had hyperemesis, which meant that I had morning sickness for the entire 9 months.
Ew.
Yeah, I was not working for the first trimester. I couldn't even get up. I was losing weight. It was horrible. I'm like,
Oh,
and my doctor tells me, oh, only like this is very rare. I'm like, oh, well, thank you so much.
you were the lucky one. You were
Yeah,
so, I mean,
it was
but
hard.
nobody would recommend it as a weight loss program. I mean, this sounds absolutely horrid. So for the entire pregnancy,
Yeah.
morning sickness. Ew. Ew, ew, ew. I can't. I think being nauseous is the absolute worst. Just the absolute worst. Pets.
No pets. My husband's really bummed because I'm super allergic. Although I told him once I'm like 80, 90 years old, I'm not going to care anymore. We're going to get a dog because he's just dying
Oh,
to get a dog.
so for now it's goldfish, right?
Yeah. For now, it's nothing
Oh,
really.
okay. All right. Okay. And home is
Fair Oaks. So we've been here for 8 years. We lived in Folsom for 1 year and then we moved to Fair Oaks. It's been 8 years. Before that, we lived in Utah, of all places, for 14 years. Before that, New Jersey for a decade. So I have moved from the Philippines to Taiwan to the United States. And within the US, I have lived in Ohio, New Jersey, Utah, and California. And I am not moving like ever. This is it. This is home.
they're carrying you out of here feet first, huh? Okay. Hmm. So, okay. When you were a little girl, what was your favorite book?
Favorite book. Okay. So I grew up in the Philippines, and unfortunately, my family were non-readers. I don't even know how I took up writing. My parents never read books. My two sisters didn't care about books. So I was the only one who read, and mostly I borrowed books from the school library.
Mhm.
I just really remember reading the Bobbsey twins. About two pairs of twins. The older twins were the dark-haired twins were serious, and then the blonde younger twins were really mischievous. I loved it because it was such fantasy, it was so wholesome. The parents were so loving and their lives were just so perfect. And I was in the Philippines, and that was exactly the kind of book I needed.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, I think many of us cut our teeth on the Bobbsey twins,
Yeah.
Nancy Drew, books of that ilk when we were little. And I think for a lot of mystery writers, that's where the mystery bug first kind of came along, because they were very, very smart people, oftentimes a smart female person solving crimes. And it was uh inspiring, I think, for young girls to see smart women solving crime. So okay, so the Bob sequence. So when you were a kid, then did you see yourself doing this as an adult?
So when I was little, I just had a vague idea that I would work in an office. Like in elementary, I just thought I'd dress up every morning and go to some office, which was very vague to me, like maybe a bank or something. It was only in high school and then in college that I uh, began to seriously think about writing, but it was journalism is what I had in mind, which I did eventually, as a career. I am really a late bloomer as a novelist. I only thought about writing fiction after I immigrated to the United States. I was already in my 20s. I was a graduate student. When I arrived here in the US in 1989, one of the biggest hits was the Joy Luck Club by Amy Tan.
Mhm.
And she really, really inspired me. I clung to her, even though she's Chinese American, and I'm obviously not Chinese American, but she's Asian American. And for me, it proved that there was an audience for Asian American stories. And her book that was the first time I thought to myself, I would like to write. I would like to write a novel.
So,
So
how old were you when you started?
I was like 25, 26, really.
I love that you think of yourself as a late bloomer starting at 25 or 26. Please.
Why?
Oh, because many of us are a lot older than that and we're just getting started. So you weren't a late bloomer. I think everybody blooms exactly when they're supposed to bloom. But I
That's a good
do
idea.
understand exactly what you're saying about being inspired by another voice of color, because a couple of years ago, 10 years ago, even, as recently as 5 years ago. I mean, I still
Yeah,
don't think that there are enough voices of color out there,
exactly.
but there are certainly more than there
Mhm.
used to be. And it's being encouraged, which I think is really, really wonderful. So when you are not writing, you can usually be found where?
I'm just at home all the time. I'm really introverted. I've been working from home since 2007. So a lot earlier than most people who just started working from home during the pandemic. I have worked from home for a long time now because it suits me. I've worked for software companies. I learned that they had the technology to let me work from home. And so that's how I did it. I am mostly at home reading and writing. I'm not good with sports. I don't understand sports. So I'm not, I just mostly am at home.
So a homebody, it doesn't sound like you're doing a lot of TV watching while you're at home either, right?
That's the other thing. My mother-in-law just cannot believe that I don't watch TV. And she keeps every time we meet, she'd say, "Did you watch, The Gilded Age or whatever?" And I'm like, "I don't watch TV." And like, "Oh, you still don't watch TV?" Like, she really can't understand it, but I don't. So I only watch TV for the news. I will watch films, I will watch Netflix or whatever, but I don't seem to have the patience for like series, like 30-minute, whatever, Seinfeld or Friends back then was really, I just didn't, I really couldn't stay interested.
Give you a good book.
I'm always just reading. Yeah, I read multiple books at the same time.
How many do you juggle at once?
About
How many
three, at
books?
least three.
Wow, wow. You have, oh,
And
okay.
now that audiobooks are really good, I just barely discovered audiobooks because in the past I really like to see the print, I like to see the words. But after Multo was published and I have my own audiobook, I had to listen to it. And then I really like Ramon de Ocampo. He's Filipino American actor and he's really good. So after that, I started listening and I realized that I could double my my book reading, and it's just wonderful.
Oh, I think, and your readership as well. I mean, there are a lot of books that it's hard for me to find time to read
Right.
them if they aren't audio. I'm in my car far too much, but that's where I am. And it's really easy to listen to a book, and I can
I
knock out a
love it.
book very quickly if it's on audio. Whereas reading it, as a
It-
caregiver, when I get
Right.
in bed at night, I read 4 lines and I'm out. I'm asleep.
Tired.
But if I'm driving and I'm awake, I'm doing errands, I just love listening to audiobooks. Okay. I wanted to point out for those of you who joined us after we'd been chatting around in here for a while, Cindy's information, her Twitter link, her Facebook link, her Goodreads account, her YouTube channel, her LinkedIn information, all of that, and a lovely picture of her, which, believe it or not, she told us was a selfie. I
Okay.
should take such a good selfie as this of myself, are all at the beginning of the chat. Okay, so you can go back up there to catch all that. So you can reach out to her and find out more information about her books, and follow her on Instagram or Twitter, and be able to read all the reviews and everything else about her by hitting up one of those links. Okay. So, all right. So so up to, you juggle up to three books at a time. And now you've discovered audiobooks. So it probably will be more than that, probably. So, and what did it feel like the first time you heard your book read to you?
Yeah, it was strange, but in a very good way. It was a very emotional experience when I was listening to the audiobook, because really, I'm lucky the actor did a really good job. I was afraid that of the accent, how if it's a non-Filipino actor, that it might sound like funny or just mocking, or so I was concerned, but I didn't have any say on the audiobooks. I just got lucky that they actually hired a Filipino American actor who could do justice with the accent.
I loved it. I loved listening to it. And I mean, it sounded very authentic when he
Right.
was being
He's really
Domingo,
good.
but it also sounded very authentic when he was the wife. Um,
Right.
Her name just went out my mind, but all of the American characters sounded real. There was no accent with them. And
Right.
because something like that, that's the only thing with an audiobook. If you don't get a good reader, it can take you out of the story,
It's true. I
you
have
know.
given up on some books because I just got annoyed with the voice, which is unfortunate. Because then I tried then to go back to the actual books. I could read it, but sometimes you just forget about it and you move on. But
Of
I have
course.
definitely given up on books.
Of course.
I
I
didn't like
mean,
the voice.
well, I find that happens a lot where authors read their own books. Sometimes it's really great. I mean, I loved, who's the guy, Everything I Need to Know About Life I Learned in Kindergarten. I love his books, love, love, love them. He really is an awful reader. There's a couple of his books that he read, and I mean, it's a good thing I was already in love with his writing, because I would never have picked up a book based on that. On the other hand, you get somebody like, I just finished Whoopi Goldberg's book, and
Oh, well, yeah.
it's like a 14-hour one woman show just for you. It was fabulous. It was fabulous. So yeah. So yes, the reader makes all the difference in the world. And I think if you had nothing to do with picking your reader for Multo, you did luck out, because he did an
Yeah.
excellent job. But I was just imagining as we were talking about it, what it would feel like. It had to be extremely emotional to hear your words, your character
Really nice. Yeah.
coming to life. Yeah, 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 yeah. Okay. So, when did writing become a passion?
So after I immigrated to the US, because I came as a graduate student, and for once I wasn't working, I was just a student. So I actually had the time to read and write. And I realized this is what I want to do. I want to write novels. I wanted to do other types of writing other than just news writing.
Mm, mm, mm.
So
So, okay, but before we leave news writing, so you worked for the Associated Press as a reporter. What was your favorite story that you did while working with the Associated Press?
so I would say that I still remember it now. I spent a whole day covering Clark Gable's hometown. in Cadiz, Ohio. So I was based in Columbus, Ohio, for the AP in Columbus, Ohio. And most of the time, AP reporters don't have beats, unlike newspapers. Basically, you go into the office and whatever is happening that day, that's your beat. So if there's like a mass shooting somewhere or an explosion somewhere, you go out, that's your beat. But there was this one time, very rare, that they sent me a whole day to Cadiz, Ohio, which is in eastern Ohio. It's a very small village. It's a mining town, but the people were just so nice, so lovely. It was so pretty. I had such a great time. It was almost like a vacation. So I met all these people, and at that time they were trying to
Uh-oh.
form a Clark Gable Foundation.
Uh-huh.
They wanted to boost tourism, like they wanted to have a museum, and they wanted to promote the town as Clark Gable's town. And that's what I wrote about. And a few days ago, I checked whether they did form that foundation. I'm so happy to find out that they did. And, they have all these events. It seems like the town is doing much better than when I was there. So,
Oh, how wonderful. How wonderful. Okay. All right. So that was your favorite story. So talking about your writing process, plotter or pantser?
yeah, plotter, definitely
Wow.
plotter. And I think it's very scary to face to face a blank screen in your computer and you say, okay, start writing. Whereas it's a lot easier to write an outline, right? It's just an outline. So in a way, I'm tricking myself to, do the outline so that I have a jumping point when I start writing.
Mhm, mhm.
Um,
So you have
the
a jumping off
actual,
part.
yeah,
Yeah.
the
Yeah.
actual chapter.
Okay. So once the book was done, what was the most surprising thing that landed on your to-do list?
Um, it wasn't surprising. I knew I had to do it, but still, what surprised me was how hard it was. And that is finding a literary agent. I knew it was something like looking for a job, right? Right. You're sending queries. It's almost like sending application letters, but I didn't realize it's like 100 times harder. Um, Boy, I'm actually on my third agent now. That's the other thing. First, that it was so hard to get signed by an agent. And second, even after I signed with an agent, my first two agents failed to sell my books. So there's no guarantee. And it took me so hard and so long and so hard to find these agents, and yet they still failed to sell my books. And usually after 2 years, they would drop you from their roster, which is exactly what happened with me. So now I'm on my third agent, and she is the lucky charm. She's the one who sold my book finally. So
Ah,
Multo is actually my third published novel and my only agented novel. The first two books that I sold on my own, which means I didn't get a good deal. I mean, I don't know how to negotiate. I don't know how to ask for anything. They basically said, "Do you want to sign with us?" And I'm like, "Yes."
mhm.
So, so yes, so finding an agent, finding the right agent, it just turned out to be so hard. So,
Well, you mentioned that I asked you the process from typing the end in your first book to signing, and you said for Molto the process took 28 years,
yes.
and that your publishing journey was very long and circuitous. So, can you tell us a little bit about your adventures in publishing?
Yeah, so I'm looking at Karen's question too. So I think it's leading to that, to my present book deal. Yes, Multo, I first wrote this book in 1995, believe it or not. And it was also my very first attempt to write fiction. It only took me 2 years to write, and yet it took 27 years to sell. I originally wrote the book from the point of view of the undocumented immigrant, not the bounty hunter, and it was considered literary fiction. It was universally rejected by all the literary agents who read it. And so they just told me, outright, this is uncommercial, this is unsellable. Nobody's going to read about a Filipino immigrant, an undocumented immigrant. They just told me outright. So, it hurt, but I moved on. And that is why I had two other books that were published first. So yeah, my very long and roundabout journey started in 1995, but the biggest highlights happened in the past 2 years. So in May of 2022, an editor named Chantal Osman, who was at the time the editor at Agora Books, an imprint of Polish Books, Chantal bought Multo and the sequel in a 2-book deal. So that was great. However, later that same year, she left Agora Books. She took a job at Amazon Publishing. And so I became an orphan. It was not easy. Agora Books was not the same after Chantal left. But my publisher did a good job publishing Multo, and it came out in September 2023. I thought that everything was going really well until this past March. Agora Books and Polish Books went out of business. And so that was a shock to me. I mean, I was one of the last few authors they signed, and so I really didn't know what was going on. So in March, that was exactly 6 months after Multo was published. The publisher reverted the rights of the 2 books to me. I kept the book advance, but my biggest fear was that Multo would simply go out of print.
Yeah. And no one would ever see it.
Right. And then the sequel would never get published, and both books would simply die in my computer. So luckily, Chantal Osman, who is now at Amazon Publishing, bought the books again, this time for Thomas and Mercer. So Thomas and Mercer plans to relaunch Multo with a new title and a new book cover in August 2025, and then publish the sequel in October 2025. I don't know of any author out there whose books were bought by the same editor twice. And so I can only attribute it to good luck. And for that, I'm truly, truly grateful. But that just shows you how unpredictable traditional publishing is. I have experienced like rock bottom type of low, with all the rejections. And then when my publisher went out of business, but I have also experienced tremendous high, like a complete turnaround when Amazon bought my books. So that is my journey so far.
So how is it different now being with Amazon versus Agora? And you said new cover, new title, right?
Right.
New cover, new title. Anything inside the book that's going to change?
No, the book is exactly the same. I just inserted, they asked me for a new title. They told me upfront that they didn't want a backlist. They never publish books that have already been published. But because Multo was very new, it was only 6 months old, and they saw it as a niche book with a very narrow target audience, they felt that they could do a better job of relaunching it. And so they don't want the same title and the same cover. They wanted to own it, which I understand. They can't just, again, it's not a backlist. In fact, a lot of books that from Agora Books and Polish Books were bought as backlist. And those books are just going to be republished exactly as they were originally published. But Amazon never wanted that. And so I had to insert like a sentence in the first chapter to hopefully, if they accept the new book title, so that it would make sense, the new book title.
Do you know what the new book title is?
I do, I submitted, but it hasn't been approved, so I can't really
So let's talk
talk
about,
about it.
I mean, the cover of the original book
Yeah,
had a lot of meaning.
right. Right. So it's based off, the design is based off the Filipino flag, like the three stars. They represent the three major islands in the Philippines: Luzon, Visayas, Mindanao. The colors, red, blue, yellow, they're the colors of the flag.
Mhm.
It will probably not look like that with Amazon.
So it sounds as if, and I'm just guessing, you can correct me if I'm wrong, uh, they're in they saw what you've done as great for that niche. They are having a broader view. They want to reach a wider audience. They want to, and I know a lot of people often think that there just aren't that many people of color that are going to read other people of color's book, and we're a minority, so they want more folks. They want more folks. I get that. Sometimes they're pleasantly surprised at how many people of color do support other people of color and in reading their stories and reading their books. And I will admit, uh, this is a book I would not have picked up because I wouldn't have heard about it, if I hadn't been interviewing you. And once I did pick it up, I could not put it down because it was so wonderful to read a basic plot that we all know. It's a basic mystery plot, but the overlay of this culture that is mostly unknown to me made it a totally different story, and extremely moving. And I think I love it for that reason alone. But as a person of color, to be able to hear someone else's coming to America story, you know, I know what it's like growing up as a Black person in 1960 in inner city St. Louis. I know that story. Um, and I know what a mystery in that story would look like. This is something totally different. And it was just wonderful. You did such a great job, and I really will be excited to see what happens to Multo next. And I agree with Jennifer, who says it wasn't luck, it's talent. If the
Thank
book
you.
hadn't been that wonderful, it wouldn't have mattered. You know, uh, Chantel recognized that there was something really wonderful here. Otherwise, she wouldn't have bought it twice. She bought it first, she bought it. Yeah, I'm with you, Brian. I'm sorry to see the symbolism scrap, but since we don't know what they're going to replace it with, we'll just have to trust and hope. I mean, we may, next time we talk to Cindy, we may be saying, wow, that cover, it really blew it away. They knocked it out of the park. It was just fabulous. So we'll wait and see what they do. I really do love the symbolism uh of this cover, and not knowing that it was the Filipino flag. When you said it was like, oh yeah. And what I too, Brian, I thought, oh, that's too bad that they're scrapping that they're getting rid of that. But so we'll just have to trust that what they're going to replace it with is something else that will be just as wonderful as what you came up with. Karen will have to weigh in on this as a book cover artist at some point. She'll just have to tell us what she thinks once we see the final cover. Okay, so you're a member of National, Sync National, and Capital Crimes, and other chapters?
No,
Nope. Okay.
I'm just not a joiner. I have to shout out to Jennifer Morita. We met at BoucherCon, and she's really the reason I joined. I saw her in action at BoucherCon. I'm like, okay, I want to join. If this is what it's like. I want to join. I'm just not a joiner. Like I told you, I'm mostly at home reading a book. So
Well,
no other chapters.
we think Jennifer's pretty amazing too. And we're all really excited about her new book coming out. And I can't wait to interview her. She's going to wrap up the end of this year with her wonderful book. And oh boy, we can't wait. We just can't wait. Okay, so do you write in other genres?
Yes. So my very first book is a contemporary romance. My second book is historical fiction. I've written in so many genres. You know why? Because I've reached the point in my writing wherein the option was switch genre or give up. I told you, so my first book was Multo. It was just rejected left and right. And then I wrote the historical fiction. It was rejected by everybody. The contemporary romance was an experiment because I was beginning to question my own writing. Like, can I write? Maybe I can't write. Is it my writing or is it my subject matter? And so I wrote a contemporary romance like a marathon for 4 months. It was an experiment. I wrote a book about white people, not a single Filipino character, not a single Filipino anything in the book. Italian American hero and a white woman, contemporary romance, and it sold unagented after 5 months. Okay, so it told me that maybe I can write, but it's my subject matter. Maybe if it's non-Filipino, that it actually sold. You know, that was what it proved. But to me, as an experiment, it was a morale booster because I was really just about to give up. But after my contemporary romance was accepted, I doubled down and went right back to trying to sell my Filipino book. And that was the historical fiction about Douglas MacArthur, my MacArthur. My second agent had dumped me because she couldn't sell my MacArthur. But I went ahead, I went to the San Francisco Writers Conference. I pitched the book to publishers. 2 publishers asked to read it. One of them rejected it. Guess what? One of them accepted it. And so again, so the first 2 books, admittedly, they were not good deals because I didn't have an agent. But for me, it was just really trying to hang on to the dream.
Mhm.
The option was to continue by writing another genre or just to give it up. It's not going to happen. So yes, I do write different genres.
Yeah. And with Molto, you changed the point of view. Except,
Exactly.
you know, you went from
Again, I had to adapt because everybody was telling me that it's unsellable and it's uncommercial. So after those 2 books sold, I had to rewrite. I rewrote this book so many times, but it finally occurred to me that maybe the Bounty Hunter was more interesting. And so once I changed the point of view and the narrator, it organically became a thriller. I wasn't really looking, or I wasn't intending to write a thriller. But once I realized what happened, I totally embraced it. So I started from scratch. I kept rewriting. I started attending workshops. And then I really hang on to it. It also helped that my second agent, Paula Meunier, she didn't sell my MacArthur, but she was a really big thriller agent, thriller reader. She did encourage me, and I did get that from her. So even though we parted ways, she couldn't sell my book, I got the idea of sticking with thrillers from her. So that was the greatest gift I got from my second agent.
well, and it's really inspirational that you hung on to selling this book that long and didn't give up. And I think that a lot of times, we say, at what point do you say this just isn't going to happen? And because none of us believes that we're really Stephen King, we get those demons that say you're just not that good, or the book isn't that good, or it's not, this just, stop banging your head against the wall, let it go. And you are evidence that keep banging your head against the wall, because if you really, that's what I kept hearing at all the conferences I've ever gone to. If you really believe in the book, don't give up on it. Don't give up on it. Keep going. Well, okay, so we've talked all around the book. I think it's time to hear about the book. Can you read a little from Multo for us?
Sure. So, to those of you who you haven't read the book, so Multo means ghost in Tagalog, and the book is about a Filipino American bounty hunter named Domingo, who is looking for the only quarry that has ever eluded him, an undocumented biracial Filipino woman named Monica. So the passage that I'm about to read introduces Domingo. The entire book is from his point of view. And in his job as a bounty hunter, there's a lot of downtime. When he's stalking people, he has to wait around a lot, waiting for information or waiting for for people. And whenever that happens, he likes to write in a little notepad, and he mostly writes about his thoughts on immigration. So the passage that I'm about to read, that's what he's doing. He's writing, and he hopes to compile all his writing into an advice book for would-be immigrants. And so he's writing while he's waiting for his next assignment, which is to look for Monica. So chapter 1, The Present, what it means to be undocumented in America. If you have neither the birth certificate nor the passport to prove you belong in the US of A, you're undocumented, aka illegal. You have a visa, lucky. But if you stay a second longer than the date stamped in it, you're illegal. Americans have many names for you: undocumented immigrant, overstaying tourist, illegal alien, migrant, deportable, removable, wetback, loser, parasite, criminal. Frankly, those names are inadequate. They can't even begin to describe your situation. For this reason, I've invented my own special terms. First, multo, meaning ghost in Filipino. You know why? Undocumented immigrants, like ghosts, can be invisible. Some people can see them as clearly as the little kid in The Sixth Sense can see Bruce Willis. Others simply can't or won't. Ghosts can appear or disappear, just like immigrants on the run. Second, desperate hopefuls. You desperately cling to the hope of belonging in this country someday. Maybe you've been deported before, but you came back. Most likely you'll get kicked out again. That won't stop you from trying again and again, because desperate hopefuls never quit. Plain hope comes with a prayer, a sigh, and nothing more. It's a housebroken puppy, while desperate hope is a rabid dog. It knows no bounds and heeds no one. How do I know this? I'm an immigrant like you. I'm a bail enforcement agent who catches criminal undocumented immigrants. I am the best in the business, which means I'm your worst nightmare, or your best friend, if you listen to every damn word I say. Domingo stared at his handwriting, then at his wristwatch. 5 minutes before 9 and already scorching. He had parked the rental car outside the gated mansion because he'd come too early. At least he'd made the most of it. A few more paragraphs of his handbook or memoir or whatever it was going to be. He wasn't sure yet, but he'd made up his mind to write everything he knew about illegals. Not just a diary, but something worth reading and keeping. like a self-help book or an underground guide that would be passed around in secret. A must-read for anyone planning to cross the brutal Sonoran Desert or sail across the treacherous waters of the Gulf of Mexico. It might just save someone's life someday. He wrote in a little notepad because he couldn't get used to writing on his smartphone. He was 40, old school, stubborn, and married to no one and nothing but his old habits. Time to get to work. He shoved the pad and pen inside the glove compartment, started the car, and drove toward the gate. The property located outside of Columbus was secluded. He pushed the button on the intercom. "This is Domingo. I have a 9 o'clock appointment with Mrs. Reed." One call from the supermarket chain heiress had sent him scrambling to Ohio. Money worked in not so mysterious ways. "Domingo," a woman's voice crackled. "Sunday, it's Sunday," he corrected himself. Americanizing his name seemed the right thing to do in 1998 when he got his much coveted US citizenship. Today it sounded stupid, but he was stuck with it just as Coke was stuck with its cocaine-inspired brand. "Oh, Sunday, the bounty hunter, right? I'm a bail enforcement agent licensed in 8 states," he said. As a law enforcement professional, he deserved the same respect as a cop or a sheriff's deputy. He worked just as hard and got in harm's way just as much as those guys. Thank you.
Wow. Wow, 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 wow. So if you haven't read the book, pick it up, y'all. It's a wonderful read. You will totally enjoy it. But what I found really interesting from the very beginning was the sense of a dual personality in Domingo. On one hand, he is a bounty hunter and he does track down illegal aliens in this country, primarily people who look like him. But he makes it very clear that the people he's tracking down are bad actors. These are not people that you want to meet in any dark alley ever anywhere. So he's doing what he feels is right, um, for both for Filipinos and for his new country. On the other hand, he's driven to help those who want to come here, who haven't done anything but have a dream and have a hope, and help them accomplish that hope. And Cindy does a wonderful job of having you feel the duality in this character, that he is both. He'll hunt down the bad guys. That's what he's there for. But his heart is still, in his heart, he's still a Filipino and he wants to help these people who are coming here to dream. So it's just wonderful. So okay, but book 2 is already done, right?
Yes, I've written it a long time ago. So because I'm so crazy and I just write what I want to write, I wrote both books long, long before I found an agent and long before she sold it. I just wrote them.
So can you tell us a little bit about book 2? What happens to Domingo in book 2?
So book 2, Domingo has an entirely new case. And this time he is investigating, he's working for another white American heiress, but a young one who is infatuated, romantically obsessed with a Mexican migrant who saved her life in the desert. But because she's rich, she wants to make sure, she wants to get to know who this guy really is. And he seemed really mysterious, a lot of secrets. And so what Domingo discovers turns out to be really dangerous, that could kill them both.
Whoa, how exciting. So did you know a lot about bounty hunters before you started this? Can you talk a little bit about your research?
Zero knowledge about bounty hunter. People will ask me all the time, why did you write about a male protagonist? And B, why bounty hunter? I'm one of those writers who write to get away from myself, from my own life. And so I never write about other writers because I'm a writer. I like male protagonists. So I wrote about Douglas MacArthur, who is a 5-star general. And then I wrote about a bounty hunter. Domingo's character was actually inspired by a news article I read in the New York Times a long, long time ago about a real bounty hunter, not Filipino, but he was a real bounty hunter who only specialized in catching undocumented immigrants. So that really struck me. I'm like, really? This guy has a specialty? I didn't know that bounty hunters did that. So that's where his character came from. So I knew nothing about bounty hunting. Fortunately, there is this book called Bail Enforcement, The Advanced Bounty Hunter by Bob Burton, who was a well-known bounty hunter, and he's dead now. He was responsible for elevating the professional standards of bounty hunters. His book is so good that the Department of Justice uses it as a training manual for federal agents. It told me everything I needed to do, how to find a fugitive, how to arrest safely, and how to deliver your fugitive safely and correctly, properly to authorities, all the nuts and bolts. So in a way, being a reporter really helped me. Like, I know that if I can just find the right information, I'd be able to write it.
So, Domingo was based on the New York Times article. Where did Monica come from?
Yeah, so the book really started with Monica, or at least focused on Monica initially, because there are thousands of Monicas in the Philippines. There's literally a class of Filipinos who are biracial, and their fathers are American soldiers. So the United States, ever since the US colonized the Philippines in 1898, there has always been a strong military presence in the country. We always had the US bases. And wherever there are US bases, there are most of them illicit relationships. Typically, it's American man and Filipino woman. And a lot of the children, this biracial children, are left behind in the Philippines. Their fathers are deployed for a few years there, and then fathers go back to the US, and that's the end of it. And so we have these generations of biracial Filipino children who really don't belong to either country. They look very different from the typical Filipino, and so they stand out, and not always in a good way. Okay, they also, they get bullied, but they also don't belong in the US, because most of them, their fathers really don't want them, just like Monica. So that is where her character came from.
Oh, wow, wow. Some Dover asked if we could have the name and author of of the the book that you read about bounty hunters. She said it sounded like a really great reference. So we would
I will.
get that from you and put it in the chat for people to follow up on it. So I learned a lot about pathways to U.S. citizenship in the book. So why do you think these people are unwelcome and unwanted here?
Sorry.
That's okay.
I will.
I asked you to do two
Yeah,
things.
I'll send you the link later. It is very ironic that the United States is a nation of immigrants, but it has always struggled with anti-immigrant and anti-immigration sentiment throughout its history. Probably one of the worst laws that ever got passed in this country is the Chinese Exclusion Act of 1882. It outright banned Chinese nationals from entering the country, and those who were already in the country were prohibited from becoming US citizens. That's one. Now, another example is the Immigration Act in 1924. It outright banned all Asians. Everybody from Asia, you guys are out, except, and there's a little caveat, 50 Filipinos will be allowed to enter the United States on an annual basis. Now, in 1924, the Philippines was a U.S. colony. Okay, the U.S. military went to the Philippines in 1898 and just took over, claimed the whole country for itself. And yet in 1924, it would only allow 50 Filipinos to enter the United States. And so that showed you the great power imbalance between the two countries. That has always been the case. And I think that the anti-immigration sentiment comes from the same place as racism in general. It is really the fear of the other. Anybody who doesn't look like you, doesn't sound like you, comes from another place. There's that fear, there's that resentment. In a way, it's really human nature and human psychology. There's always that fear that newcomers, new arrivals would change the status quo. And obviously they don't want to change the status quo. So,
Well, I think that to your point about having more books with Filipinos characters and talking about the Filipino culture allows, I mean, that's why writers of color are so important, because they allow people who don't know about the other to see the similarities, you know, instead of the differences, which is what you see when you first meet somebody who doesn't look like you. And these stories allow us to kind of walk in their shoes and to feel what they're feeling and to have those emotions that we all have because we're human, no matter what, your race, your culture, your background is, you know. A Filipino mother wants the same success and good life for her child that any American mother wants. You know, there are the things that we have in common, so that far outweigh the things that make us different. So I know I'm getting close to the end, and I'm going to start getting little notes up here on my screen, but what are you currently working on?
so I am writing, hopefully it'll turn out as a Filipino noir, meaning it's a lot darker and grittier than anything I've ever written before. It's about a mother and daughter relationship, but they're on the opposite sides of the law and they're adversaries. So
Wow. So we'll look forward to seeing that come out next. And I am sorry, y'all. I just got carried away. I love this book so much. Are there any questions? I know it's 7:59. Are there any questions anybody wants to ask Cindy before we wrap it up? Oh, Cindy put in The Advanced Bounty Hunter by Bob Burton. She put it in the chat for those of you who might want to check out that book as a resource. So does anybody have any questions? Anything I should have asked that I didn't ask? Anything you want to ask that I didn't ask? I tried to cover all of the good stuff about her, but there's so much more. And if you haven't read this book, read this book. It is really, it's the nicest thing you'll do for yourself this week. Seriously, it is wonderfully written and a beautiful book, beautiful book. So, okay, I don't see anybody jumping up here and going, but Penny, you forgot to ask her, does she like milk chocolate or dark chocolate? You forgot to ask her the important things. I mean, so I don't.
thank you so much.
Oh, well,
You can contact me anytime, and you guys, please feel free to write if you have any questions.
Oh, okay.
Anything at all.
One last question. Dover has one last question. You want to put it in the chat, Dover?
Is it okay if I put it in? It's easier to say.
Oh, go ahead.
Go ahead.
As a Filipino journalist, I was wondering if you are familiar with or had ever worked with Corky Trinidad, the political cartoonist.
No, I'm not.
Because his work inspired me
Oh, okay.
a lot. He did a really good job. I was raised in Hawaii, so
Oh, thank you for mentioning it. So Corky Trinidad.
yes, and sadly he's passed. But some of his art for the Marcos regime, he worked for the Honolulu Advertiser and the Honolulu Star Bulletin. But it was really educating to a person in high school at that time as to what was going on in the Philippines. I was just wondering, I know the Filipino community is pretty tight, so
Big Filipino community in Hawaii, right?
yes.
Yeah, you guys, we're kind of wrapping up now, so feel free to take off your videos, show your
Thank you so
videos
much.
so that we can see your smiling faces. This has been a lot of fun.
Thank
I
you so
really
much.
have enjoyed this interview. I enjoyed this book. I enjoyed seeing all of you all. I hope that I'll see some of you Saturday at the winery.
Yes,
And
please remember go toward the tasting room,
go towards the light, towards the tasting room.
toward the
You
wine.
know, towards the wine. Yes. And
Bye, everyone.
I think
Thank
the
you.
weather is even going to be very, very nice. Not a triple digit, so that will be lovely too. So it'll be good to see folks because we've been in a not being able to be face to face desert for a while. So it'll be really great to have the opportunity to see folks face to face. So thank you all for joining us. Hi, Cindy. It's so good to see you. You're looking good. Cindy Sample, the other Cindy.
The others.
And the other Cindy. It's good to see everyone. You all look great. Thank you all for joining us tonight. If I don't see any other questions, and so I'm happy to wrap it up at this point. You all
Okay.
stay
Thank
safe.
you.
Thank you, Cindy, for joining us. Thank you for writing this fabulous book. Read Cindy's book, y'all. And I look forward to seeing some of you on Saturday, the rest of you later. I think, who's going to kill her besides Rick? I know Rick is going to kill her. Anybody else? And Cindy's going to kill her. Anybody else?
Donna, I think.
Jim.
And
Jim
Oh,
Latoile
yeah.
is going to kill her. Okay, all righty. Well, okay. Then those of you who are going to kill her, have a fabulous time. Party for the rest of us. Don't do anything I wouldn't enjoy. And I look forward to seeing you all again soon. And next month, Lori. Oh,
Lori Lewis Ham is
thank you.
in October.
Okay, so it's not next month. So in October,
Yes.
Lori Lewis Ham will be our next Meet the Author person. I don't know the book, but we'll find out. We'll let y'all know. And so everybody have a good evening and stay safe, stay cool.
Bye.
Thank you.
Thank you
Nice
so
to see
much.
you, Cindy.
Thank you.
See you
Thank
later.
you.
Thanks, everybody.
Thank you all.
Thank you.